Beers with Nigel is poured for you by Dire Oil Graphics, promotional products and design. They cover your brand bumper to bumper with graphic design, promo products, and print. See what Dire Oil Graphics can build for you at direoil.com. That's DYEROIL.com.
All right, let's do it. Welcome to Beers with Nigel. It's a podcast about beers and what?
And other stuff.
And other things. Brought to you by
Dire Oil Graphics, your unique partner for all your branding and merchandise needs. They really love the breweries.
It's kind of, people are shocked that we have a sponsor.
Look, I got to tell you, I'm shocked about two things. One, that people actually listen to this.
Yeah.
And two, that somebody wants to sponsor us and help us grow it. So that was awesome.
So that's Nick over there. I'm Nigel. Our guest today, our first Oklahoma City or Oklahoma brewery is Pat Lively from Lively Brewing in Oklahoma City. What's up, buddy?
Not much, man. Just living the dream. We're trying to keep the dream alive.
Shit, tell me about it. We're gonna cut to the chase real quick. You already said it before we got on, but we're gonna appease Junior. That's our
Junior.
Junior. Go ahead and tell Junior what you're drinking.
Yeah, so I'm drinking a Lively Beer Works Passion Fruit Tart. It's a 5.3% ABV. We use the term tart because it won't take the enamel off your teeth. It's sour, but not too sour. And then definitely lots of passion fruit.
Yeah. So Junior, we're drinking. I was about to call you Kenny.
I'm not Kenny.
Kenny, the professional from Oklahoma City. We're drinking Roughtail out of Oklahoma City. It's called Bless Your Heart. It's a 13% double imperial stout with vanilla. What else?
It's an easy 13%.
An easy 13%.
It's an easy 13%.
Barrel aged. Yeah. The description they said on Untappd was like approximately 2 years. So give or take.
Yeah.
So Pat, if somebody says, who is Pat Lively, what would you tell us?
Yeah. So, like we talked about, I grew up in Oklahoma City, but I guess what's pertinent to our show is that I am the founder and, owner of Lively Beer Works, but that's not where my journey in beer started. I started as a home brewer, like so many other craft brewers back in 2004, 2005. And then in 2009, I went to work for COOP Ale Works, which is a large brewery in Oklahoma currently. And I worked for them as their production manager from 2009 to 2014. And then I left there and went to Anthem Brewing Company and was the president and brewmaster there from 2014 to 2018 when I left to found this company. I've been really fortunate, I think, to be able to enter into an industry at the ground floor, especially in Oklahoma, one that was so young. At the time when I started working for COOP, there were only 3 breweries in the state. And so that's allowed me to do some fun stuff, most notably, be a founding board member of the Oklahoma or Craft Brewers Association of Oklahoma, which is our statewide guild association. And then in 2016, we were able to go and negotiate a much more equitable marketplace for ourselves in Oklahoma. And we probably went from some of the most draconian laws in the country to some of the most progressive.
Yeah. Yeah. It was Oklahoma was like, because I lived there for a long time. And, like you said, the first time I went to COOP, just when you could actually have a tap room, I was like, wow, Oklahoma is like fucking, actually coming of age. Because again, between Oklahoma and Utah, probably the 2 worst states and I think Utah is probably the last state that's probably.
So when you say draconian laws, are you talking, is it a lot of dry counties like Arkansas is, or are there just a lot of rules like if you're going to serve alcohol, you have to serve a certain amount of food? And
yeah, so we had some rules like that. The biggest thing was we were a 3-2 state. And so
this would not have happened.
Yeah. The majority of the beer made in the state was 3-2. And that was, the beer that you could buy in the grocery store and the convenience store. There was still strong beer in the state, but you could only buy it at retail package stores.
Not cold.
Yeah. And then not cold. And then you couldn't get it on Sunday. And you couldn't get it past 9 p.m. So if you wanted to drink a good craft beer, you'd have to go buy it warm off the shelf in the afternoon to have it cold. unless you want to roll the dice with the freezer.
You forget about that shit.
That's the follow-up question. How often did you roll the dice?
Every time, man. No one's got time to go to the liquor store in the middle of the afternoon.
That's what bro. That was the craziest thing, even when I lived there and when I left, it was, Byron's liquor store downtown Oklahoma City. I've been going there since I was in college, and the hustle was got to get there before 9 p.m. And it was like, remember that movie Escape from New York? Mm-hmm. It was like zombies and shit trying to get to at 9 p.m. And it's a giant store.
That was the other rule, was that you had to process. You couldn't just be in there by 9. Your transaction had to be done by 9.
Yeah.
So if you were waiting in line and the clock turned, they'd tell you, "Sorry, you got to come back tomorrow."
So I don't know how old you are, but did you ever go across the state line to get beer?
I have done that. Yeah.
It's an age-old tradition in Oklahoma.
I think I was a little bit. I think everyone was a little bit naive on that deal. For whatever reason in Oklahoma, the sort of colloquial statement was this sort of like, the beer we have is 3 point and the beer in Texas is 6 point.
Right.
And it leads to this idea that the beer was twice as strong.
Right.
Which is factually incorrect.
Was it like by volume or by weight? Was it?
3.2% by weight is 4.1% by volume. So your average Bud Light, I think, is 4.4% by volume. So you were getting a whopping 0.3% of alcohol.
Hey,
I swear to God, if you were at a party and someone was like, "I got Texas beer," and that's really affected me.
Back in my car sales days, a good deal is a state of mind. Just saying.
That's right.
Well, look, and there is a certain age of your alcohol consumption career where you can convince yourself that, it's affected me a lot.
Did you just call it a career?
I mean, look,
it definitely has been a career for me.
Some
well, you have a fucking brewery.
Hey, we get paid for this show.
Is that
career?
Touche.
Pros.
Touche.
So, hey, how did you go from home brewer and right into working production for a big brewery? Was that a leap?
They weren't that big then. I think is what helps, and I think there was a reason there were only 3 breweries in Oklahoma, and these guys that started COOP had not heard that reason yet. So they had the brilliant idea to open a brewery, but definitely didn't have necessarily the wherewithal. And the industry was a lot smaller then. People weren't moving to Oklahoma City to come to a startup brewery. You know what I mean? Like we haven't really seen transplants from out of state come into work until like the last 3 or 4 years. Yeah. So, I guess I was kind of it, and my buddy who's still the head brewer there, he was the same deal. And Chase Healy, who's at American Solera and before that Prairie Artisan Ales, he was there in the beginning.
Wow.
And we were just home brewers, and luckily the guys who started it didn't know any better, I guess.
So let's back up a little bit. We always ask people, because we debate when the word craft came about.
Yeah.
Obviously you traveled across the state lines to get whatever beers you could.
Right.
What was your first experience of something you thought was, this is better than, the Coors or the Bud Light? What was the first thing that got your attention that was kind of craft beer?
I think for me, it kind of was like a parallel path. Like so many people in our state, like Boulevard Wheat was sort of the gateway beer.
Nice.
And with only in the mid 2000s, there was only one local brewery. And so Boulevard really was our craft beer choice.
Right.
And so
was that on the shelves at Byron's, nice and hot?
Oh yeah, everywhere. There's actually, Tapworks downtown, which is our sort of famous beer bar, which unfortunately just closed.
Seriously?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
Damn.
Upstairs, it says there's a giant mural that says Boulevard, Oklahoma's craft beer.
Oh wow! Does Boulevard know about this?
Yeah.
That's funny. Well, I was trying to think of when, because I'm young enough that I wasn't really drinking yet when they first started getting big. So I was trying to think of their timeline of when they started hitting some of those other states.
But then again, it's Oklahoma though, so they probably weren't getting shit when it first came out.
We weren't getting a lot of stuff. I mean, Boulevard, we were getting like Pete's Wicked Ale. I remember having that. I think really my introduction to beer that wasn't domestic light beer wasn't a 30-pack of Keystone. Probably actually was more European focused though.
Okay.
Like, some Belgian stuff, Chimay.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's good shit.
And I think that kind of opened up my eyes. And then, I started drinking Newcastle Brown and different stuff like that. I don't know that it was very fresh, but it was.
But it wasn't domestic, right?
Domestic lager, yeah.
What was the first thing you brewed as a home brewer? How'd you get into home brewing?
Just by happenstance, really. A buddy of mine, we were actually like in our last semester of college, and I went to school at a small liberal Christian arts school.
What school would that be?
Southern Nazarene.
Oh, my brother went there.
Yeah, and we weren't allowed to drink. But
no, I went to Oklahoma Christian, bro. I know.
Oh yeah. Absolutely, Yeah, I always joke. It's funny, like here I am. I'm the president of the Oklahoma Craft Brewers Association, and the head brewer at COOP. And then there's a brewer at a new brewery that just opened, Big Friendly. We all went to SNU. And my dad was a professor there. That's how I ended up there. And
really?
He just retired, but for a long time when they would send out the emails asking for suggestions for stories for the alumni magazine, he would always submit us.
That's awesome.
They wouldn't even respond to him. They wouldn't even say, I don't think this is our crowd. Just pure silence.
That's awesome.
I did not go to a Christian school, but I went to school in Joplin, Missouri, so I understand
it's like going to a Christian school.
The buckle of the Bible Belt. I understand.
No, we were the zipper of the Bible Belt. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
My friends and I like to drink beer, and I think it was finals week. It was the spring, and a buddy of mine, we didn't have anything to do, and we were driving down Pennsylvania Avenue, and I looked over, and there's a shop that just was called the Brew Shop. I was like, hey, let's go in there. I thought it was going to be like a liquor store, right?
Right.
When I was a homebrew shop, there was this guy Chuck in there. He has since sold it and moved to Salida, where he opened another homebrew shop. But that shop, every time I try to stop in there when I drive through, it's closed because he's skiing. I think he takes it too seriously.
He made his money.
Yeah, he sold us a kit, and we got an Australian Pale Ale.
What?
So I thought about that several times. I don't think I've ever made an Australian Pale Ale since then.
Nobody has.
I don't even know what a commercial example would be.
Would it have an Australian hop or something? What was the hook?
No, I don't. I don't know.
You don't remember?
I don't know. It was like an extract.
It was extract.
Yeah.
How'd it turn out?
Well, we thought it was good, but 5 gallons made like whatever 2.25 cases, which were all gone in the first night.
So what was it that hooked you though? Were you hooked after that first brew?
No, I don't know that I was. I liked it, but I don't know that I completely understood it. And I actually graduated, and I went to work in campaign politics. And I was traveling around the country working on these different campaigns sort of through the 2006 and 2008 election cycles. And I was getting to try a lot of craft beer that we didn't get in Oklahoma. And then I was working on this race in Virginia in 2007, and it was really close. And there was a recount, which is odd to talk about in current times. And my candidate was down by 400 votes. And she wanted to recount it, even though I told her, you're not going to find 400 votes. And so we did the recount, and it took a couple weeks. And I wasn't going to make it back in time for Thanksgiving, so I called a friend of mine who was at the University of Pittsburgh going to law school. And I said, hey, can I come? And she wasn't going home either. She's from Elk City, Oklahoma. Can I come and have Thanksgiving with you and your husband and hang out? And she was like, yeah, I just have class until Wednesday, at 4. And I was like, well, I'm off I'm trying to get out of here first thing. Like, that's not, whenever you lose an election, you're ready to get out of town. So I just was like, well, maybe there's like a brewery I can go visit. And on the way from Northern Virginia to Pittsburgh is Pottstown.
Yeah.
And so I went to the Yuengling Brewery,
Yeah.
and I guess I had absorbed more knowledge from the, handful of batches that I had done prior to that point. And so I kind of got the fever then. And so I stayed there, and we went to this small brew pub in Pittsburgh called Church Brewworks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like really kind of cool restaurant that's like in the sanctuary, and on the altar is the brew system.
I know all about it.
That's cool.
And, kind of did that. And when I got back, I called my buddy and was like, hey, can you still have that homebrew stuff? And he was like, nah, I don't know where it's at. Or, I think he was just bullshitting me because he didn't want to give it to me. I didn't care. I had just gotten paid. So I went and bought a new kit. And my buddy Blake, who's the head brewer at COOP, I said, hey, let's make this beer. And he's like, I don't know. I think my wife's going to hate it. And I was like, no, let's just do it. And I guess the rest is history. Now we've both made a career out of it.
That's fucking
That's
awesome.
awesome.
That's awesome.
So basically, you went to church and you found your path. I mean, that's what you can tell everybody.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
I'm thinking of Blues Brothers there. He saw the light.
Yeah. So when you started at COOP, I mean, what year was that?
2009, we were part-time, and then Chase Healy was full-time.
So what was it? I think of
like part-time super volunteers, and then in 2010 we both sort of stepped in full-time, and then Chase stepped out in 2010.
So what was that like in Oklahoma? Because back then you couldn't have a tap room, right?
Yeah, it was a little strange. I mean, we had to be a full-fledged production brewery. And I think the way that they did it was smart. The owners decided to be draft only. And so they basically turned Oklahoma City into their local tap room, So when people call and say, where can we get your beer? We had a handful of accounts that would carry every brand. So we could go, we'll go here. One of them happened to be like walking distance from the brewery. And so you could go and you could try all the beers and do that stuff, but you couldn't come in the facility, obviously.
Right.
But it was just different. And I think that created a really high barrier of entry. So we just didn't have a lot of breweries opening up, so it was a little bit like the Wild Wild West.
Yeah. I can remember when COOP first got that tap room. I mean, it was basically just a garage door that we're gonna make a tap room.
Yeah, because when we designed that brewery, that's the second brewing space that COOP has. The first space was over at 51st and Western, across from Bishop McGinnis High School.
Really?
Yeah. We built that space out in 2014, and there was no real thought that the law was going to change anytime soon.
Oh wow.
And there's lots of different stories about how the law came about changing, but at the end of the day, you can't invest a bunch of money in a tap room that you may or may not ever have.
Right. Because it was makeshift when you guys did it.
Yeah. So then the law changes, and by the time I was gone from COOP, but they had to make do, right? Because they had optimized all their space to be a production facility.
Right.
And then they were subsequently able to sort of find another solution. Now they kind of have a permanent tap room solution.
No, when they went from the temporary one to the one around the corner, it was, I went to both. I was like, wow. But I was thrilled because I remember my son went to Oklahoma Christian as well.
Yeah.
And I went down there and I wanted to go see him, but I went to the brewery first because I knew they had a tap room. Priorities, what I'm saying? And I went in and I was like, all those years I lived in Oklahoma City, I'm like, wow, there's a fucking brewery. I was blown away. What was that like? Obviously you made the jump, which I didn't know you went to Anthem. What was it like when the laws changed and you guys like, oh shit, this just happened? What was that like?
It was pretty crazy. I mean, so, depending on who you talk to, sort of a conspiring sort of course of events that led to the law change. But the biggest thing was that Oklahoma has like one of the largest constitutions in the world. Like all of our law exists in our constitution. So it is incredibly difficult to change. And so anything that was going to happen with alcohol was going to have to go before a vote of the people.
Right.
And so I think that really helped us though, because we said, if we're going to do this, we have to do everything at once. Like there's no baby stepping this. This is a complete overhaul of our alcohol laws. And I think the big thing was basically cold beer in grocery stores and convenience stores. That was, the Oklahoma business community got really behind that idea. I think they thought that they were losing out. Companies were losing out on talent to companies in other states because of lifestyle issues.
Right.
The great story, is Aubrey McClendon, who's the founder of Chesapeake, wants a Whole Foods, and Whole Foods is like, nope, we're not coming because we can't sell wine and beer,
right,
strong beer. And Aubrey goes, well, I'll give you rent free. And they go, well, okay, we'll come. But he wanted Whole Foods there, and it's directly across the street from the Chesapeake main campus, because he was, trying to improve the lifestyle of his employees.
Right.
And I think there was sort of this culmination of events that all led to that. And so, we just were fortunate enough to get organized and get in and really, since they had already opened themselves up to a massive change, to go in and get some stuff done. And we actually found a loophole. So the original law was passed in 2016, but like I said, it had to have a vote, and then it didn't go into effect until 2018.
Right.
So sort of this, we have to have a couple of years to put this into place, and there was wholesale change to distribution level and all this stuff. And so, but we came in and said, hey, there's no reason why we can't make tap rooms legal today. And so in May of 2016, we got a bill passed. We got them to put an emergency on it, and in August we had tap rooms. And in February, we had no concept that it was going to be on the table.
Yeah.
Well, that soon. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It happened fast.
Pushing for it, but then we kind of came in and we were able to pick this one issue out and say, hey, that right there, there's no reason we got to wait to 2018 to do that. Let's do that right now. And so, in August of 2018 or 2016, people could open their doors and sell beer for the first time, direct to consumer.
Do you remember that first day or night when you rolled open the doors and started serving out of the tap room?
Yeah, I hate to admit this, but I wasn't there. I had booked one vacation for the whole year, and I was going to Oregon to go to wine country, and we'd booked reservations for restaurants and did all this stuff. And I think that my partner, she would have killed me if I'd canceled. So I was actually in Oregon drinking wine, which was not bad by any means, but it was kind of a bummer to miss it.
Yeah. Before we move on because I want to talk about how you made the jump from COOP to Anthem, because I thought you went from COOP to where you are now. But before we do that.
It's mystery time.
It's mystery beer time. So one of the things we do on our podcast, we've got this this bag might or might not have been stolen from a golf course. Doesn't matter. Shout out to Tony Medina. So, Nick is more of a whiskey bourbon guy, but I'm coaching him up on beers. Probably in March he didn't like sours. Now he does. So I'm thinking I'm a pretty good coach. Just call me Pat Wright.
You know what really got me to like the sours? I drank one.
Several. You didn't like him at first. Shut your mouth.
That's true.
Here's your first mystery.
What do we got today?
There you go.
The paper bag.
Yeah.
It still keeps it classy.
Pat, you have a favorite style that you like to drink?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I've gone through phases, definitely, where I had, I definitely went through an IPA phase probably in the late 2000s where all I wanted to drink was IPA. And then I went through this sort of sour barrel age phase.
Yeah.
And now I just really want quality. I think I want to see that someone worked really hard on the beer and definitely put thought into designing it. And I've just come back around to lots of different styles. I think, I used to be one of the guys that didn't talk kindly about wheat beer, and a great wheat beer is good.
Yeah.
Well crafted, it's a great beer.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of more where I find myself these days. I don't, I probably drink more IPA than anything.
Right.
But that's also what's readily available.
Right.
But we've been doing a lot of lagers. Definitely love drinking lagers.
I love a lager.
So
what you got there, Nick?
What do we got? We got Martin City Brewing, their Doughnut Stout with maple and vanilla.
I haven't actually had that. So shout out to Martin City Brewing. They've got this great beer club.
Oh yeah.
$24 a month. You get 24 beers. 20% off of food. 2-for-1s when you go in there and drink. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. I'm like, what a great deal.
That's a really good deal.
Yeah, I was like, why would I not sign up for 24? I mean, I have nowhere to put them because my buddy Kenny, shout out to Kenny from Oklahoma City, he brought me so much beer from Oklahoma City. It's so ridiculous. I've got so much beer right now. So much beer.
Your COVID fridge has seen more action during the last 10 months.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think Martin City, that we've had some of their beers recently. They're definitely doing some interesting stuff. We had that.
Yeah.
Someone brought us that buffalo wing sauce one.
I didn't try that one.
Me neither. How was it?
Well, it's I mean, it tastes like buffalo wing sauce. Not that that's what I want to drink. I think that's my problem with it. Like, I mean, I think that they did it right. It tastes like buffalo wing sauce. I just don't want to drink buffalo wing sauce.
That's fair.
That's fair. You know,
I want it on my wings, but I don't want to drink it as a beverage.
Right.
Yeah.
And I almost don't want it on anything but wings.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not like, I'm not an equal opportunity buffalo wing sauce person. If it goes on wings, maybe it can go on some legs, but if you put it on a breast, I don't want it.
Yeah.
This is pretty tasty.
You know, I expected it to be a lot heavier.
Yeah,
but it's really thin.
A little thin for my taste, but that's fine.
You can taste the syrup.
You can taste the donuts, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, so you made the leap from COOP to Anthem, which when I started going to Oklahoma City was one of my favorite breweries. How'd that happen? What made you make the jump to another brewery? Well,
I think, we got done building that new facility, and some different things were going on in my life, and I didn't really know where I was headed with the company or in life in general. I didn't know. Honestly, I didn't know if I was going to continue to be a brewer.
Really?
I was going to, maybe go back to school. I was kind of, looking at a lot of different options. And the guys at Anthem, they just opened up their facility and they're having a little bit of trouble. Just normal stuff like not making batches on time and not kind of have that sort of foresight so that, hey, if we got an order coming in, we need to have this beer made 2-3 weeks ago, not when the order comes in, And so I went to work for them sort of just temporarily. And around that time, I sort of said, I think I'm going to keep in this for a little while longer. And I was talking to some people about raising some money and staying in the industry and maybe opening my own space. And about 3 months into it, their kind of founding brewer decided to leave the company. And eventually he moved to Seattle. He's actually got a new brewery up there. And they came to me and said, hey, would you be interested in staying on permanently, kind of in this sort of operator of the company role? Wow. And I thought, well, this is sort of what I was trying to do. But I don't have to go through all the hassle of the startup, and I got a brewery. I can just make beer and do the thing that I want to do. And so, yeah, that's kind of how that happened. It was, I wouldn't say that it was painless. I think that, I was probably, as far as I know, I was the first brewery employee to switch breweries.
I wouldn't be surprised in Oklahoma City. It's so young.
Right. And so, there was, there wasn't always good blood, but I think now that we got, we're upwards of over 50 breweries. We've had lots of people move around.
Is it 50 now?
It makes a lot more sense. Yeah.
Wow.
So you went in that amount of time, you went from about 3 to now 50?
About 10 years. Yeah.
Wow. They call that exponential growth.
But I would say, you can tell me you're there, that the brunt of them is probably in the last 5 or 6 years that's happened, right?
Definitely since 2016.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
30 breweries open since 2016.
Holy moly.
So fucking ridiculous. That's why, I go to Oklahoma City probably 3 or 4 times a year. And then Kenny was like, oh, we need to go to Lively. I'm like, where's that? What's that? So, I pull up to this place. I'm like, I lived in Oklahoma City for a long time and I know that area. And all of a sudden there's this building right there. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So how long were you at Anthem?
I was there from 2006 or 2014, like October 2014 to April 2018.
Oh, so a while.
A little while, yeah.
Wow. So, we have to ask the question because, it's like you said, there's the, you said there's nothing not painful about being in the business and opening a brewery. So obviously you had some designs on, hey, I want to open my own spot. When did that come to, when did that start budding? What was your thought process along those lines?
I think it became apparent to me, for several reasons, probably midway through my time at Anthem, that it wasn't going to be a long-term, I wasn't going to be there in my career there, And so here I am, I'm the president of the Oklahoma Craft Brewers Association. I'm running this company. What do you do? So I thought about moving, maybe trying to get in a bigger brewery, what do you do to advance your career kind of? And finally I decided that, I'd built great relationships and contacts here in Oklahoma City. And the most logical thing was for me to make that step, a little bit further and become an owner and be the master of my own destiny, as it were.
What was it that you wanted to do most, by being on your own, by being the master in charge there? I mean, were there beers you wanted to make? Were there business goals that you had, or was it just, I just need to try this on my own?
I think it was mostly the latter, mostly just about doing it on my own. I was really fortunate that at COOP and at Anthem, we really had broad range in our ability to make what we wanted to make. I think so coming into Lively, I wasn't going, well, they never let me make this beer, so I want to make it. But I definitely was started going, like I want to build a company, and so our logo is a tree, and people ask that. It's not very beer centric. But we kind of see the company as a living organism, and that, we're making beer, and that's what's, ultimately important to us. But we also want to create a great culture and this sort of living organism that is our company, so that people can have good jobs with good wages and, be able to, do what they enjoy and work in the beer industry. And so that's kind of, I think what I really began to focus on as I transitioned away from Anthem to starting this new project.
So you mentioned like being in the beer industry and making good wages and that sort of thing. Obviously, there's a lot of breweries that don't do that. Is that one of your things that you're like, hey, Lively's going to be this?
I mean, I think we want to be fair. We always want to be near the top end of the market. Unfortunately, beer being so heavily regulated, that end up being like what people don't really realize is that means the price is regulated to some extent. Like we have so many partners we have to work through. And so, we can't go, hog wild, but I think we can pay people fairly. And, give them, a decent wage for their work. And, I think the thing you see a lot in breweries is overworking people. And so trying not to do that.
Right.
Is also, I think, a major goal.
Well, you said earlier about your first stop at COOP that, you were the part-time super volunteer.
Right. Yeah.
Which I think everybody's had that moment, or a lot of people have early in their career where they, you're passionate and you're excited about doing. And so, yeah, I'll come in and keep working.
And I think in beer, I think a lot of people, I mean, I work for 3 breweries. I mean, I see it. People are just passionate about it. So it's not about the money, but at some point you need to be able to pay your rent. So, the shout out to you for at least, that being, something that's on your mind to make sure people, one of the things I learned when I went to England a couple of years ago, and the people that I met in the beer industry, they were all about paying a living wage. And that's not necessarily the thing in this country in breweries. It's not. It's, most people, I have people who work for breweries for free. Pay them in beer. That's not, that's not going to pay the rent. But you can get your beer, but that's so really of all the episodes we've done with brewers, that's the first time I've heard somebody that said this is what I want to do as far as making sure whoever works for you, feels like they're being treated fairly, because that's huge.
Right. And I don't know that we'll always be able to do it. I don't know that we've always been able to do it in our short history, but it definitely, I think, is a value that we carry.
Well, I mean, you've been open for how long?
The brewery's been open for a year, and we've been operating for a little over 2 years.
So, I mean, that begs the question. I mean, the pandemic, when that shit started, how did that affect what you guys are doing? You're a brand new business.
Yeah, I mean, we've had to take cuts, everyone, myself included. We've tried to keep everyone employed, but we had to shut down, and we laid off our taproom staff with the idea that they could go on unemployment and probably make more than what they were making,
Right.
Versus trying to find work for them to do. And then just I would say that we're probably 40 or 50% down on our projections for the year.
Right.
And when that happens, you got to trim the belt a little bit, And so for me, my goal with it isn't that, companies can't trim the belt or these things. It's just, you got to be honest with your employees,
Right.
About
Right.
what's going on. So
Right.
we don't have like a doctrine as of yet, but we practice a bit of open books. We show them the books, we show them what's going on, what we're doing, and just say, hey, this is where we're at, and
Right.
hopefully they'll draw the line from point A to point B is like, hey, we're trying to keep everybody employed here.
Right.
I think that's a huge move, for you. As far you talked about, creating the culture there where you work, and you're showing them some of the numbers, and letting them in. And I remember the first time I had a boss do that, where he would show the budget to every employee in the meetings, and there were a lot of people on my side of the wall that didn't care. They're like, I don't care about the numbers, but I think it shows a lot of, hey, everyone's involved, and here's how everybody's role makes this work. I think it's a big move. It goes a long way to creating a culture where everybody feels a little bit of ownership in the product.
Sure.
So when I can speak to what Kansas City did when everybody had to, nobody could go in the chat rooms, and it was this big groundswell of breweries. One of the breweries I work at, Diametric, they created this thing, Together We Can. So basically, they got a bunch of breweries to bring their beer to that brewery, and we did these to-go things. So you could order online, drive through, no contact, pick up all your beers. What did Oklahoma City do? Was the to-go game big? What happened when all this shit jumped off?
It was big. We've obviously had to-go rights, but we were able to sort of lobby the Able Commission to take a more favorable rule or interpretation of the rule that allowed curbside.
Right.
People didn't have to come in to get the beer. And then ultimately we were able to convince them through the governor's sort of emergency order to give us delivery rights for the first couple months. We subsequently, oddly enough, they ended up making that permanent for restaurants and bars and liquor stores. But they didn't make it permanent for breweries. There's a constitutional question about it. So we'll be working on that for years to come, I'm sure.
Yeah, one of the things that I hate, and whether it be Texas, Oklahoma, or here, they think a brewery is a bar, and it's not the same fucking thing. It's a totally different vibe. It's totally different people. I'm like, what in the world? I think we need to get some. Granted, you were head of an organization that represents craft beer, but I feel like we need to get some, brewers or somebody in the legislature who can appreciate that, this is not a bar. It's the furthest thing from a bar.
Yeah. So a lot of what we talk about at the legislature is manufacturer first.
Right.
Like, we are so much more than a bar, and that our tap rooms aren't about alcohol consumption. They are a valuable business stream, revenue stream, but they're really also our main marketing arms.
Right.
They're like fundamentally the way we get to compete with the bigger guys, essentially. Like, we get to bring people in our doors.
Yeah.
And that really resonated with our legislature. And I'm, really thankful for that. And because of that, we've been able to tweak the laws here and there to allow children in breweries, and to kind of show that breweries aren't, the big bad evil alcohol makers.
Yeah.
We're manufacturers, we're small companies, we have young families. Being a brewer, I think, is a respectable trade.
Right.
And our government and our laws should treat it as such. Like my daughter, she can do whatever she wants, but if she grows up and she wants to work in the beer industry, she should be able to say that proudly.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And some of my friends, they went to Michigan recently, and Michigan shut down these restaurants and these bars, but they looked at breweries. No, those are manufacturers,
Yeah.
so they didn't even mess with the breweries. They're like, they manufacture product. So I'm
No,
like,
they do.
I wish, some of these other states would be like, who knows who's going to Washington or to Congress or the state level. I'm like, maybe we need to get them to have, spend a day at a brewery and be like, this is not a bar, bro.
Right.
Well, it's amazing how much weight falls on those guilds. I mean, you were just talking about, you're the president of the association, and I mean, look, a lot of people forget about the lobbying arm of an association and what they can do.
For sure. I mean, it depends on the state and the different,
Right.
Every
state's different.
Do you think that's the biggest thing you're doing as part of the association? Is that kind of your biggest thing?
100%. Everything we do is essentially about funding our presence at the Capitol. And I mean, we tend to think, we don't have a whole lot of offense left to play. We're feeling pretty comfortable about where we're at, and we want to continue to condition it. But now it's about playing defense.
Right.
We've gotten all these rights, and we've gotten all this stuff. And, as much as I would like for people to say, hey, those are small businesses, leave them alone. I mean, history tells us otherwise.
Right. All right. Mystery beer time.
Uh-oh.
Man.
Here we go.
Uh-oh. Mystery beer time. Oh, there's an empty bag. that's not it. Oh, it's a bottle.
Uh-oh. Did you bring a bottle opener?
We've run into this before. Do I have to go to the kitchen and go get
go
one?
out to the kitchen.
Let's see what it is.
Let's
I'll go to the kitchen.
Pause button. What do we got here? Southern Tier Brewing, Salt and Caramel Imperial Ale. A little bit of an imperial theme today.
Well, I think I feel like Pat, the last time we did a pod, he was a bit. He made some faces because there was a couple of IPAs, and I felt like he wasn't happy.
Oh no, that is not true at all.
I felt like you weren't, your jovial self.
The guy, there were other things like COVID world. COVID ruins everything.
Well, not in this room.
Not in this room.
All right, I'm gonna go get an opener.
All
right,
you
can entertain Pat until I come back.
We'll pause. Have you cracked another beer yet?
I have another one of the same one. I got 3 of them sitting here in front of me.
Next time one of us hits Oklahoma, I'm gonna have to grab that. That passion fruit sounds fantastic.
Yeah,
I like those.
Absolutely. I haven't had a Southern Tier beer in a long time. I wouldn't think they distribute to Oklahoma.
Well, and so how does that work for you guys in hitting distribution out of the state? Because every state's a little different. And I've worked with a guy here in town they're doing a gluten-free, and they are doing the entire process from hops. They own everything, just to make sure that everything's sanitary and follows, nothing gets contaminated. But their biggest thing has been getting distribution in the States. Like they were able to go to Canada and Europe like that.
Yeah, so I know brewers around the country who, they don't distribute in their entire state, but they send beer to China.
Yeah.
I think right now in the United States, with over 8,000 breweries, I don't think that it's too crowded, but what it has created is a localized market. So people, when people don't really want the out-of-state beers much anymore. They want their local stuff, And when people travel to places, they don't want to drink the beer that's not from there. They want to drink what's local, I think that the buying sort of metric has really shifted towards local.
So as you look to grow, though, I mean, is wider distribution a big deal to you, or is it more of a smaller?
It's not a huge deal for us. I mean, we want to distribute in the state of Oklahoma. We think that we are an Oklahoma brewery, and we want Oklahomans to have the ability to get our beer. I don't know that we have overarching goals to distribute outside the state of Oklahoma right now. Something would have to change like drastically in the market for me to. It's a lot of time and effort for not a lot of beer sold right now.
Well, yeah.
And so, when I was at Anthem, we sold some beer in Kansas, and we're working on deals in Arkansas and Texas, and it's just a lot of effort. And I know friends that have distributed, out of state, and it's just it's a tough road to hoe right now. I think, the days of breweries being able to build hundreds of thousands of barrels of distributed beer in 50 state regions is probably, I don't want to say
not.
It's just not. It's not going to be a common thing.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be the model.
It's going to be
regional, or maybe it's local, or.
Well, I think you're right. People want to drink their local stuff. There's pride, right? There's pride there. And when you travel, what do you want? I want to know what's happening in Oklahoma City. I still am I can't believe in 4 years you went 30 new breweries.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions about that. I'm in Oklahoma City last week, right?
Yeah.
And I'm at the On Q.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, it's amazing how much even the smaller breweries are in stores.
Yeah, so On Q is a little bit of an outlier because their beer buyer is very craft forward and very local craft forward.
Good for him.
That's actually a woman.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah, and she kind of had this inspiration to build these like giant local beer sets that gave room to breweries that normally wouldn't be in an On Q.
Right.
Or a 7-Eleven or a Quick Trip or these things. To date, no one else has really followed that trend in the convenience store sector. But On Q is killing it right now with local beer. And definitely is opening up space that some breweries would never sniff at.
Yeah, I was amazed. I'm in the store and I'm like, there's a 22 ounce of can of Everything Rhymes with Orange. And that's a beer that gets distributed to Kansas. I was like, I've never seen one of those up here. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I want to just buy them just to show people up here. Look at this shit here. But that beer is very famous up here for Roughtail. So, but because it's not widely, you can't get it on the Missouri side.
Right.
You have to get it on the Kansas side, and even not Kansas City, Kansas. You have to go like to Lawrence.
Right.
Yeah. It's not even on the Kansas City, Kansas side, which is very interesting.
Yeah. So the wholesaler they're with in Kansas, that's the wholesaler that Anthem's with, and I negotiated that deal.
Really?
And that wholesaler is they're good. They're like more of a wine wholesaler, and with Oklahoma beer, they seem to do better the closer they get to Wichita.
Okay.
Like, so we would sell some beer in Wichita and Lawrence and some of these places, but Kansas City, Kansas was always kind of a tough nut to crack. Some of it is the accounts in Kansas City, Kansas.
Right.
A little bit more chain oriented. And
yeah.
And then they just they didn't really have a very powerful portfolio. I mean, their biggest beer brand, I believe, was Left Hand.
Okay.
And so it's just like, they're not drawing a lot of, leverage at the account, let's say.
Yeah. And when I say Kansas City, Kansas, I mean the Kansas side, because that could be, because there's other municipalities.
Yeah.
But yeah. So you've kind of grown up in how Oklahoma craft beer has grown. What's that been like for you to it's homebrew all the way to now you have your own brewery. That's a great, so it's almost like a lifetime story, movie.
Well, maybe. I don't know.
I missed it. We don't know the end of it yet.
Or if it could be on TV.
Well, edited.
Yeah, edited. That's right. It's a little interesting. I think, on the one hand, like, I'm super psyched that I've been able to be involved in it. On the other hand, it's like, I'm only 10 years into my career, and that doesn't feel that long, but I'm like the aging grandfather of the industry.
It's a lot of experience in 10 years, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. It's, it's been a wild ride, but like, it's just interesting. It's great to see. It's great that like we've built a sustainable trade. Like, being a brewer is now a thing you can be in Oklahoma City where it really wasn't before.
Right.
And there are jobs and opportunities to get in the door. Working in the beer industry is a lot more open now than it's ever been. And so there's, it's been cool. At the same time, you kind of look back when it's happening, it's hard to stop and go, oh shit, that's really cool. It kind of,
you're in the midst of it. Yeah.
What's the rest of Oklahoma like? I mean, I know really the next metro is the Tulsa area, but what's the rest of Oklahoma like?
Obviously Oklahoma's sort of a rural agricultural based state. Oklahoma City, Tulsa, the main two metro areas. As far as beer goes, though, we're starting to see breweries pop up in those rural areas. We have 2 breweries in Enid, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
We had a brewery open in Duncan, Oklahoma. We've got 2 breweries down in Broken Bow, which is down in the far southeastern corner. We just had a brewery open up in Bartlesville, which is not far from the Kansas line.
One in Ponca.
One in Ponca.
Yep.
Yeah. We got one in Pryor. We got one in Caddo.
Wow, Cattle's got a brewery?
Yeah.
Wow.
One in Pawhuska.
Wow.
Yeah. And then there's
these are very small towns, Nick.
No, actually, I know many of these actually.
Yeah.
So
several.
I know my Midwestern rural areas.
Several of the casinos have added breweries or brew pubs.
Really?
Yeah. So the Osage Casino, I think they actually just shut theirs down, which, not to dredge up industry news, but 9 Band Brewing Company had put in.
Oh, yeah.
And that guy, I think, got himself into some legal trouble.
Oops.
And
Oops.
it's like stuff out of a movie, like murder for hire stuff. Like it's fucking weird.
I need to go Google that shit.
We'll be hitting the interwebs later.
No, I'm just go ahead.
We've had lots of breweries in the rural areas as well as the sort of urban areas. We've had, I think, in Oklahoma City alone this year, if you include us, our tap room opened up on December 14th of last year. I think we've had 7 new tap rooms open.
Yeah.
Just kind of in the Oklahoma City area. And there's, probably plans for 6 or 7 more.
I was really fascinated by the Brewers Union. How, all these breweries have gone there. It's almost like an incubate, like this building here. It's a co-working space.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and it's all these breweries that have. That's a cool concept, but I'm blown away. As young as Oklahoma City is beer wise, there's some really, really, really good fucking beer.
I think
it's crazy.
We've been fortunate in some ways, and then I think we have a fairly strong community, and we have had since the beginning. So we talk to each other, and I think at times we've been honest with each other.
Right.
We're not always that way, but prior to 2016, with no tap room and pushing all your beer into distribution, where it wasn't going to be shipped cold and it wasn't going to sit on the shelf cold, and it wasn't, you had to get your shit together.
Yeah, your game had to be tight.
Very, very high bar to sort of to jump over. And so I think, we kind of took it from a collaborative standpoint as an industry and realized that, all boats float in a rising tide, but
hell yeah,
one boat with a hole in it could drag us all down, sort of deal. And so we try to be, open and honest with people and also helpful.
Yeah. I love Oklahoma beer. I'm just going to say it. I mean, it's the shit that Kenny brought me. I'm like, bro, come on, man.
Well, I got to ask you. Just talked about because of the distribution rules. It's not going to be shipped cold. It's not going to sit on shelves cold. So the bar is already high. Did that make you a better brewer?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it made us. We couldn't stick our head in the sand, right? Like, it doesn't mean we didn't have problems. It meant that we needed to be honest when we had problems, and we needed to bring beer back if it was not standing up on the shelf, and we needed to figure out why. And the way we did that at COOP, and I think the way a lot of people have done it is, at the time there were not a lot of local breweries. We talked to our local brewers, but we were also leaning on our national friends. Avery Brewing Company was a huge resource for us early in the COOP days. We made friends with those guys at GABF, and they really kind of opened their doors to us and allowed us to call them and ask them questions, send them beer to have run in their lab.
Yeah.
Just these things. It doesn't happen as much anymore because there's so many breweries locally, but really we had a much broader community in those days. Boulevard, I knew guys at Boulevard that would help us out on different issues and stuff like that. Just give us advice, and that was kind of how we did it. Now there are books upon books upon books, but we read everything we could. We did everything we could, and then, I like to say it's not rocket science. You know, you got to be thoughtful about it.
Yeah, I
Well, I'm going to beg to differ because I talked to all you guys and
he's weird about that. I think this guy can cook, so I think he could brew a beer. He's just scared to do it.
There's too many rules, man. Rules frighten me.
Rules, mules, whatever.
Rules, math, those kind of things.
But the entire craft industry's kind of about breaking those rules. You know, we got breweries. We got breweries in Colorado that are, and I guess elsewhere, the ones I've seen are in Colorado. They're doing these Drink It Now series where they're just putting fresh juice in at the end of fermentation.
Yeah.
And if you know anything about fermentation, if you let that sit warm, that will ferment and then explode the vessel it's in.
Yes.
So you will have an exploding can or exploding bottle or these things. But when it's fresh, it's delicious because it's basically fruit juice.
Yeah.
And so they're just telling consumers, hey, it's going to explode. So drink it fresh.
Drink it now.
Rule number one.
My jaw hit the floor. I was just like, you know.
I kind of want to do adventure beer drinking now. Like, can we zip line in, drink it fresh,
and zip line out?
As long as it stays cold, you're safe. You know, it's like the plot to a bad action movie.
So hey, we've talked a lot about the business side and the government stuff, but what's a good day in the brewery to you? What's that perfect day?
Oh, I mean, I think a good day is when something doesn't break. First and foremost, right?
Spoken like the business owner.
Yeah, and I mean, just a good day from the beer side. You have something break in the process, and you're trying to figure out how you can, you know, keep the batch alive, and you're gonna have, you know, these things, and you know, and then you start worrying about how much it's going to cost to fix whatever broke, or whether or not you can fix it yourself, for all these things. So, but I think a good day in the brewery is, you know, honestly, a day where you don't have any major screw ups, you don't have anything break, but you also like are focused on the beer. You know, like you're not dealing with other stuff. You're not, you know, we do all the other stuff. We do events, we do marketing. We have to. We're a business. You know, if I just wanted to make beer, I could do it at home, but I've chosen to make beer to sell beer. You know, like, so we have to do those things. But for me, the best days are the ones where I get to step away from that, and it's just about the beer.
Is there a particular style you like to brew?
Oh, you know, I don't know. You know, I like IPAs. I like trying new hops. I think the expansion in the varietals of hops have been really interesting. And so doing single hop stuff and doing that stuff is always very interesting to me because, you know, we went years without getting new varietals of hops, and now there's like 5 new varietals.
Yeah, 50 of them, yeah.
So, I think stuff like that. And then I've been incredibly interested in lagering for the past couple of years. And really kind of like craft beer was really craft ale for a long time, and lager was a bad word. And
right.
And you know, lager is beer and has its place. And, you know, I even think light lager has its place, you know. And so, you know, we've had a lot of fun sort of decriminalizing that word. And
I think that might be your next beer name. Decriminalization.
Decriminalized lager. No, you're right, because, you know, in the last couple of years, lager has, you know, because, you know, I mean, you know, you're a fucking brewer. You can't hide shit in it. If you fuck it up, it's fucked up.
And there are more levers to pull with it than an ale. You know, kind of ales are your, you know, I mean, you can kind of do these set steps and you're going to end up with an ale, right? And you can do that with lagers, but there's more granularity in how you kind of mess with those steps and some of your temperatures and the length to which you lager it, the different lager yeasts.
Yeah.
And then I just think, you know, with anything, you know, you make IPAs for 6 or 7 years and you start going, let's make something else, you know, or you make adjuncted stouts and you're going, God, I can't.
I mean, when you drink those for 6 or 7 years and you're like, you know, I come across a lager at a brewery, I'm like, I'm going to drink a lager. You know, I'm going to do a flight, but I'm going to drink a lager just because
it's a good litmus test, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
You walk in a brewery and they got a Pilsner on, or they've got, you know, export lager or something like that. Like to say, hey, I want to try that because that's going to tell me how well you execute everything else. And maybe I'm not going to go down that Dortmunder road.
That's interesting, because I was going to ask you, like, kind of, do you have a go-to when you go to a new brewery?
Yeah, I mean, I I tend to sort of lean towards lagers first, and then. But I also like, you know, I'm probably going to end up drinking several IPAs, but I try to leave it towards the end because then I can't really taste the lager at the end, you know.
Right.
So I try to be responsible about the flavors that I consume so that I get the best idea of what they are.
Yeah. I'm gonna flip the script a little bit.
Uh-oh.
So the last time I was in Oklahoma City, which was probably a month ago or whatever, you know, we talk about diversity and inclusion, you know, at tap rooms. The one thing I noticed about Oklahoma City, I saw a lot more diversity than I see here in Kansas City. I don't know what that is. Have you noticed that? When I saw you, after I saw you, when we went to what's the not Flying Scotsman? It's what they're called.
Angry Scotsman.
Angry Scotsman.
Flying angry. Maybe he was flying angry.
Every place I went, I was like, wow, there's people of color here. There's women here. And you wouldn't think Oklahoma City would be like that, but it is. What has been your experience?
I think it's relatively new. But yeah, like, I mean, I think that's been a surprising turn. You know, obviously opening up a lot more jobs opens up the opportunity for people to get involved.
Right.
But I agree with you. I don't know that the craft world has been overly diverse. But we have, you know, several women brewers now that are around, which is awesome. We have like a women in craft beer or women in Oklahoma craft beer association. It's kind of about promoting more women activity in the beer scene. And then it just seems like we've, you know, had more people of color in our doors, which I think everyone is so psyched on.
Dog likes it.
The dog is a fan.
It's bedtime. The dog likes bedtime. I think everyone around here likes bedtime.
No, when I was in Oklahoma City, every place I went, I was like, this is very interesting. Because in Kansas City, that's not the norm. And that's one of the things in Kansas City that we're trying to foster is like, how do we reach out to some of these, you know, people who may not know about craft beer? And what I found, I was at your place, Angry Scotsman. I was at Prairie. I was at whatever. Everywhere I went, I was like, oh, there's people of color. It was pretty weird for me.
Yeah. I think it's, you know, I don't want to say it's strange. I want to say that we expect it to be normal, but it definitely is a newer turn. I think a very positive one.
Has there been, you know, conscious, intentional efforts toward that, or has it been pretty organic?
I mean, I think a lot of our brewers, you know, chose to take part in the Black is Beautiful beer, and that I don't want to say that didn't help.
Definitely helped.
I think we've all tried to create like responsible, inclusive places. You know,
right.
I would not say that our state is overly inclusive or equitable when it comes to issues of diversity. But I think most of our brewers have tried to create equitable and diverse spaces. And we've got a brewery that's coming online in Norman called Equity Brewing Company, all 4 women. And their whole kind of mission as a brewery is to find ways to promote equity in the brewing space.
That's awesome.
We need to find them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she's, you know, kind of one of their main leaders. It's these 2 women and their daughters actually doing it. And one of the daughters is going to be the brewer. And but one of the mothers, you know, she's former professor at OU. She's really sharp. She may be still a professor at OU. I don't want to say she's former professor at OU, but and it's a really cool thing. And I don't know that anyone went out and said, hey, anyone from our industry went out and said, hey, you guys should do this. But definitely once they said they were doing it, everyone's like, that is a great idea.
I mean,
that's exciting. I mean, that's an exciting thing to hear. Did you guys do the Black is Beautiful?
We didn't. You know, we're fairly young. We didn't at the time have a great way to package it or to do anything. COVID hurt us in our direct sales because at the time we only had 2 beers in cans. I didn't have any way to label cans at any high level. We didn't have a crowler machine at the time. We were just had been open for 3 months. You know, we're still.
I can't imagine 3 months and then the plague hits.
Yeah, underneath us, and so, you know, we were kind of trying to build ourselves so that, you know, if we do get shut down again, we're more well prepared. We bought a labeling machine and we've got a crowler machine and we've been making these things. So that was part of the deal. And then I think at our brew, we took it very seriously, and we have begun, working with some organizations, social justice organizations and stuff like that on long-term partnerships. But at the time, the Black is Beautiful thing for me felt like if we jumped on, it was more about being guilty by absence. And I wasn't really wild about doing that.
Right.
I didn't want to do it just because everyone else is doing it.
Right.
Look, all of those moves, I think, to get involved, it has to be genuine.
Yeah. And so it's not that we didn't agree with what they were doing with Black is Beautiful. It just sort of, felt like if we were doing it, it wasn't authentic to us, like we were just doing it to be a part, basically.
Right. I will say though, some of I think there were 17 breweries that did it here. I've had several others from different states. Some of the ones from Oklahoma City were like, I was like, again, going back to Oklahoma City beer, that bar you said, they're just killing it. I mean, whether it be Elk Valley, shout out to Elk Valley because I'm repping Oklahoma City. Vanessa House. Prairie. I mean, it's killer.
I've been all over the country. I've been in some of the best breweries in the country. Had the best ranked beers or the most hyped beers, and had these things. Pound for pound, the beer that's being made in Oklahoma now is as good as anywhere.
Bro, I keep telling people. Yeah. People are like, Oklahoma City. I'm like, you're sleeping on them. It's 5 hours from Kansas City. Take you a weekend down there. Not Tulsa, because everybody thinks, oh, Tulsa, Prairie's there, American Solera, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, nah, Oklahoma City is fucking legit right now. I would take anybody down there who thinks they know beer. I'm like, on par with every city I've been to. And I've been to a lot of cities. I'm telling you. It's great. It's great beer.
Only thing Tulsa has going for it is like the easiest in and out airport I've ever been in. But that's it.
Oklahoma City's got that going for it too.
Yeah, the Oklahoma City airport is pretty.
I've not flown.
It's pretty chill.
I want to ask one more question though about the Black is Beautiful project and the diversity and from your perspective as a brewer and Nigel, you've been all over and talked to a lot of them. Other than, I mean, it's been a great collaboration project and a great story to see this guy down in Texas had this idea and thousands of breweries internationally got on board and did it. What's the real impact been? Do you think it's raised some awareness? Do you think it's opened some doors? And I'm just curious what both of you think.
I would say that the breweries who have done it, obviously when you brew it, the idea is to donate the proceeds to a particular thing of social justice. But I think it's also raised the craft beer because it was on all the news stations because it's a huge deal. And people are like, what is this? Pat, last time I came to Oklahoma City, I brought some Black is Beautifuls down there. Mm-hmm. And, we promoted on whatever, yada, yada, yada. But everybody I talked to was like, I want to try it. I love the initiative. I want to try it. These are people who have never tried craft beer.
Right.
And their first craft beer is a fucking Imperial Stout. Hell yeah. Let's get him in. Put me in the game. Put me in, coach.
Yeah.
So I think on that level, I think it's as a lot of prongs that thing has prompted, whether it be, donating to a charity or whatever. I think it's elevated craft beer because what other industry, we've talked about this, what other industry, I'd be like, yo, Pat, I got this recipe, bro. I'm going to send it to you. You riff on it however you want. Most businesses don't want to do the same shit.
No, you use the same label. Like, I mean,
right. The same, right. How do we distinguish what you know what I'm saying? Right. So again, I go back to what industry would even attempt something like that? You name another industry, I'll give you $1. You name one.
Yeah,
you got nothing.
I don't know that I can.
I definitely think it showed the best of our industry, right? And
yes.
So I think it raised the profile of our industry. I think it raised the profile to some extent internally. We all had to have tough conversations about the lack of diversity in our spaces and our employees, and these things. And that's not always intentional. I used to say for a long time, I would love to hire a woman brewer, but I've never had one apply. Like it's these things where you go, like it takes these steps and it takes raising that profile. And then I think from a company standpoint, for us, we really even though we ended up not doing Black is Beautiful, we really benefited as a company by having the conversation, especially as a young company, having that conversation and deciding who we are as a company and what our ethos is, And what we decided was we're too young to make this decision right now, but we definitely want to be a brewery that's more inclusive.
Right.
We want to promote equity in our space and in our world. And I think you see that. The only thing that I say is cross out of the craft industries. You see that in other industries too, where being a socially responsible company is more important today than it's ever been.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I want to steal a little bit from Nigel's on this one because he's asked this in other episodes, and I, because of what you just said about, you'd love to hire a female brewer, but no one's ever applied. And Nigel likes to ask this question to a lot of people about tap rooms, but I think it'll be interesting to hear you as a business owner, whose responsibility is that? So when you hear that answer, no one's ever applied, a woman hasn't applied, or a person of color hasn't applied, do you think that's on you a little bit to go find those, or is it? I mean, what part of the industry? How does that change? I guess is the question, and who needs to kind of take the lead on that?
I think that it's important. I mean, it's hard because it kind of works both ways.
Yeah, I don't know the answer, and I don't know that there's a right answer.
It's important to us when we make a hire that is an open hire. I mean, we've had the opportunity to hire some people that we knew, and it wasn't really an open candidate process.
Right.
But when we've had an open hire, we try to identify what we want in that person. And sometimes, hopefully don't get in trouble with this, we identify things like gender and race. If we have the opportunity, we would like to hire someone of this ilk because we want to be a more diverse company. And I honestly think that if it's a bunch of white dudes drinking beer, you're probably going to get the same beers over and over, and you need some,
Right.
And I mean, like, that's female, my partner works at the brewery as a taproom manager, and she's a certified sommelier, and she brings, a wealth of sort of taste and knowledge to the table in a way that, grungy brewers don't. And that's really important,
No,
that's great. I think that's a good answer.
I mean, the fact that you're even thinking about it, and that's the start. Because again, like you said, generally people are going to hire who they know, which is cool to start.
Well, I think especially when you're a year old, right? When you're opening the brewery, you're going to hire the people you know and the buddy that's going to help you out.
And that will work for beer.
Especially like on the production side, you want to make sure you hire a competent person.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about that to other brewers, and we're like, do you want experience, or do you want somebody you can mold? And there's two sides of that. I mean, if I'm starting straight out, do I want to train up Nick to know how to mill grain? Do I? I don't know.
No, you don't. No.
It's a hard thing for.
Look, that's a level of skill that Nick's not going to have.
We talked about this at Pat in Kansas City. It's like, they're all smaller breweries. The only brewery that advertises, that has commercials, is Boulevard,
right?
Because they have the money, right?
Sure.
Everybody else is word of mouth, Facebook, beer events, festivals, that sort of thing. How much time do you have as a brewer to be like, you know what, we need to go market and blah 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 and do that? It's a hard thing. I mean, I get it.
Yeah,
I get it, but
it's a hard thing to balance. I mean, but you got to do it. You got to find ways to do it. I think most of us use social media, and we use in-person events, which have subsequently gone out the door this year, and we use.
Well, look, we're hoping this time next year, or maybe August, maybe we'll be back to once everybody gets stuck in the ass.
Here's what Nigel's going to turn into a road show.
Yeah, that's our whole plan. We've been talking before the whole pandemic. We had this whole road tour. We were going to come to Oklahoma City and go to Chicago and all these other shits. But
we're buying an old VW bus, man.
Are we?
It just sounded good. It just sounded good.
I mean, will it get on the highway? I'm just.
You may have to push.
Hey, I think it's got to happen. I've been jealous about the mystery bag.
Well, look, we got one more mystery beer.
Oh boy!
It fell out of the bag, so I put it back in. But it's a tall.
Do I need to be careful when I open it?
Well, no. It's one of those. It's been fermenting for 4 days. Outside.
This isn't a drink it fast beer.
Yeah. Where's I don't even? Oh, I know where that's from. That's from Oklahoma City.
Ancient Arkana.
Is it another Roughtail?
Roughtail Prairie collab.
Yeah,
Yes.
that collab.
Yeah.
Now, thank God for beer friends.
That is a fantastic
I was in Dallas.
artsy label, though. I'm gonna have to hold this up to the camera.
Yeah. Look at that fancy label. There you go.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I'm in Dallas last week, and that comes out, and I'm texting my buddy. I'm like, hey, I've paid for these 2 4-packs. Would you mind go picking those up? And God love him, because they're on Memorial, right?
Yep.
The new place. Well, he lives in Del City,
Oh yeah.
so he's a good guy. He went over and got those.
Yeah. That's
Good
a good hike.
Yeah, but he's
That
a
smells
beer
fantastic.
guy. It smells fantastic.
Oh my gosh.
Did you tell Junior what the last beer was?
I thought we did.
Did we?
The salted caramel.
Junior, just in case we didn't say it, Southern Tier salted caramel. There you go. Tasty.
It's the beer version of the salted caramel latte. Your wife orders.
The beer version. It's pretty.
That smells good.
Oh wow. Yeah, have you had this?
Ooh.
I haven't yet. No,
I
think
like
there's
that.
There's a can.
Oh my
sitting
God.
in the fridge at
Just
the brewery.
just on the nose, man. It's
Should have grabbed
beautiful.
it. That would have been fortuitous.
That's a $4 word. All I have is $3.
No, but it.
Yeah, that's really good.
Well, what's next for Lively Brewing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary. I think we're going to put out our first barrel aged beer, 11%, just straightforward imperial.
When is
Stout.
this?
In a week, 2 weeks. We'll see.
Okay. I'll be back down there in
Like
like 2
everyone
weeks.
else, we're fighting with packaging, and it's really hard to hold timelines right now.
Yeah.
Well, an early happy birthday from the Beers with
Well,
Nigel
only
podcast.
reason I'm asking, I'll be back in Oklahoma City in 2 weeks. So there's that.
Yeah, on the 12th, we're having our anniversary party.
Okay, right on.
Yeah. So.
You guys doing obviously there's restrictions and shit. What you guys doing some sort of event? What are you doing?
No, obviously we just don't feel like that's really responsible. So we're going to do the bottle release, and we're going to have some variants on tap, and we'll have our same tap room restrictions, which right now we're at 50%. And we have to close a little earlier than we normally do.
You guys doing 11 now? Is that 11?
Yeah.
Well, if don't feel bad, we're at 10. We're at 10 o'clock now.
Yeah.
As of a week ago.
Yeah.
Which is just strange to watch happen.
It was just mildly shocking that our governor did anything. He's been very.
Have you met ours?
Can we trade for like a couple of weeks and see what the fuck happens?
Yeah. So.
Well, I think your governor changed after he got it, right?
No, I don't think so. I don't think he did. I don't know if you've seen. It's made national news, but his solution to the pandemic for this week has been to designate a day of prayer and fasting.
Oh, bloody hell. Are you kidding me?
I'm not joking. And it's like,
and we went to Christian colleges and we know better.
Yeah. Medical help would be good too.
some sort of
leadership. I don't know. Probably getting on some sort of enemy list right now.
So what year were you at SNU? What years?
2000. So I graduated high school in 2001. So 2001 to 2006.
Hey, fun fact: my brother, back in the day when it was called Bethany Nazarene, is in the Bethany Nazarene Hall of Fame for soccer.
Not really.
Yes.
Yeah. When would he have been there?
Shit, probably 80s.
Yeah, I mean,
long time ago.
Might have had my dad as a professor.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And he might have actually. My dad, starting in 1980, he was like the dorm dad for the freshman dorm.
God love those colleges with the dorm dads.
Yeah. Was that a fear of yours growing up? Like, man, if I go to college there, he's going to be my dorm dad.
No. I've not been a dorm dad.
Where'd you go to high school at?
UConn High School.
Oh, right on. That's a fun fact. Again, when I was at Prairie, I met this brother, went to UConn High School, lives in UConn.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like 4 weeks ago, just random at Prairie. So
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I've got like three employees that went to UConn that I didn't know when I hired them. Like, I wasn't
now what country star is from UConn? Who is that?
Garth Brooks.
Garth. It's Garth. See, he's from
You
UConn.
mean the country star?
All I know about
goddamn right.
Garth is OSU. That's the only.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Stillwater, but yeah, UConn, Oklahoma, home of Garth Brooks.
Yeah, on the water tower and everything.
Yeah.
Pat, bro, we appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, I love it, man.
It's been a great talk. I'm glad you survived the baby's whatever the baby had. You know,
the bedtime. Yeah. Oh, you know the cold. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that your only child?
It's the only one. Now I got another one on the way due in May.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you. And then that's it. That's it. I think.
You done?
He's calling it.
I mean,
throw in the towel.
Have you told anybody else about you're done?
Oh yeah.
She knows.
I got this buddy who I went to school with. He's a urologist, and he'll do a vasectomy to trade for a good bottle of scotch.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
By the way, I think he just made our next T-shirt.
I was trying to vasectomy for a bottle of scotch.
Yeah.
That's classic right there.
Hey, well, thanks, man. Thanks for coming on, and happy birthday! Congratulations!
Hold on, no. Where can we find you? Where can we find you on social media and the brewery?
Yeah, so at Lively Beer Works on Instagram, Twitter, Lively Beer Works on Facebook, and then www.livelybeerworks.com. And if you're in Oklahoma City, we are downtown, just 3 or 4 blocks west of the Chesapeake Arena, where the newly revamped Oklahoma City Thunder call home. And
all the new players.
Yeah, we're on Google.
They're on Google.
There you go.
Where can they find us, Nick?
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or really, just most any of your favorite podcast apps. You can find us at beerswithnigel.com. And guys, it's Christmas season. We got merch. So if you're ready to buy some gifts for your loved ones.
Did you miss something else? What did you just do today? What did you do today?
Oh, we launched a YouTube channel today.
Yeah.
What?
Like, we've been talking about it for a while, but now all of our episodes are available on YouTube.
So Pat, you're actually episode number 20. So is that some sort of anniversary?
Do we celebrate at 20 or 25?
I mean, what's 25?
I celebrate. Look,
25 is silver, straw. What's 25?
I don't know. I haven't hit 25.
We'll call this tinsel or something since it's Christmas time.
There we go. Tinsel.
We're brought to you by
Dyer
Oil Graphics. DyerOil.com for your graphics needs. They do make. I left stickers at your brewery. The Beers with Nigel stickers.
Yeah.
Dyer Oil made those. Hopefully, those are on your walk-in.
We got them on the walk-in door. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I will give a shout out to when I was there at the brewery. Your taproom staff were fucking badass.
Thank you.
I roll up in there and we got to talking. They're like, "Oh, you work at a brewery, blah blah blah." They're like, "Oh, you get the industry discount." I'm like, "Cool." They were like 99%. I was like, "What the fuck?"
That's awesome.
I was like, "So definitely when I come back, say it again."
Breweries out there, but that's sort of the dinosaur in me. I grew up in the industry when that's what happened. When you worked at a brewery, and if you went to that brewery, they paid for your beers. And
I love it.
With the idea that you paid it back when they came to see you.
So do you? So if I bring some beers to them, is that okay?
Oh yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So when I come down in a couple of weeks, I'm going to bring some Kansas City beers that they can't get there.
Nice.
And I'm going to warn you: when Nigel says he's bringing beers, he's bringing beers. It's not a light load.
Well, we love beer.
Well, I work at 3 breweries, so I mean, I can't drink them all.
Yeah, you gotta share.
You try.
I got beering is sharing.
That's right.
Yeah. If I ever drink a beer by me, you just had a look on your face. Is that a T-shirt?
That's a new shirt.
Beering is sharing. Hey Pat, appreciate it, bro.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Absolutely. Thank you guys.
Thanks for listening to Beers with Nigel. We'll see you guys on the next podcast. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
You've been listening to Beers with Nigel, a show about beer and other stuff, hosted by Nigel Woodbury and that other guy, Nick Parker. Beers with Nigel is poured for you by Dire Oil Graphics, providing bumper-to-bumper graphic design, promo products, and print services. Find them at direoil.com. Beers with Nigel is a proud member of the Fredcast Network and is available on all of your favorite podcast flavors. Find Beers with Nigel on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and ask Alexa to play the Beers with Nigel podcast.